The shadow of iron, the king's betrayal. The first light of morning crept with cautious shyness. From behind the misty mountains of the north, the earth seemed coated in a cold, silver layer after the fine rain that had fallen during the night. The wind echoed among the stone towers like a howl from the east. In the distance, the ancient oaks at the kingdom's border bowed silently, as if about to hear another oath they had grown accustomed to hearing for centuries. That morning, Lord Aldrich de Varenne took a long look at his face in the mirror as he donned his heavy armor. Deep circles of weariness lay beneath his eyes, and lines silently etched across his brow as the years wore on. Nearing 40, he had been raised on the scent of battlefield blood since childhood. But that morning, he felt that the blood that would be shed today would not come from foe, but from friend. King Roderick was a ruler who had drawn his sword even against his own people to defend his throne. He was a man intoxicated by power, but every time Aldrich saw the fear in his eyes, he knew the king was truly afraid of even his own shadow. If a man, Aldrich thought as he buckled his helmet, would betray even God to preserve power, from whom can he finally hope for mercy? Outside, the neighing of horses, the clang of armor, the tense melody of the pre-battle silence could be heard. In front of Varenne Castle, hundreds of spears gleamed brightly in the morning sun. Most of the soldiers were tired, but none of them tried to hide it. For to be a soldier in the Middle Ages was to make death their friend. Aldrich was a nobleman raised on the battlefield, but he always harbored a conflict within him. His father was a former knight who had helped King Roderick ascend to the throne years earlier, but as soon as he ascended, the king had betrayed him first. Aldrich's father was executed one morning on charges of treason, and from that day on, a fire within Aldrich had never died. But fate is a cruel teacher, for now Aldrich was forced to fight in the king's army against the king's enemies, and the king's enemies were often those who spoke the truth. On the morning of the battle, a silent meeting was held in the king's tent. King Roderick spoke, goblet in hand, a false smile on his lips. "I remember the names of all who helped me establish this kingdom. But let no one forget, I will bury even the descendants of those who betray." As Aldrich listened to the king's words, a voice echoed within him. "Then why is my father's grave left unmarked, your majesty?" Of course, he remained silent, for in the Middle Ages, silence was a way of life. But that night, Aldrich looked at his hands sharpening his sword and swore to himself, "One day justice will be reborn in the hands of men, not kings." It was the 4th day of the battle. Eldenburg Castle on the northern front was under siege. The sky was covered in black smoke, the ground turning blood. The roar of horses, the clash of steel, and the groans of fear mingled together. Aldrich fought in the front lines. The mud and blood spattered across his face. As his sword grew heavier, so did his heart. With each blow he asked himself, why? Why are we killing each other? Who takes this castle? Who defends this land? At that moment, a horseman carrying the enemy army's standard collapsed. As Aldrich approached, he saw the horseman's face. It was his childhood friend Henrik. Years ago, Henrik had fled the king's tyranny and joined the northern rebels. Now he was felled by Aldrich's sword. With his last breath, Henrik whispered, "Brother, you are on the wrong side." And he froze, his eyes turned skyward. A part of Aldrich was torn from him at that moment. At that moment, every banner in the king's army seemed like a shroud to him. At the end of the battle, Eldenburg fell. The king declared victory, but behind that victory, thousands of graves had been dug. That night, a great feast was held in the royal palace. Music, laughter, the clink of glasses. But Aldrich sat silently in a corner. The king approached him and touched his shoulder. "My faithful friend Aldrich, without you my throne would be tottering today. But know that every victory has its price." At that moment, Aldrich saw something in the king's eyes. Fear. Yes, fear still lingered in Roderick's eyes. For kings fear their own soldiers most. And a few weeks later, the sound of treason rang out again. One night, Aldrich's door was broken down. The royal guards burst in shouting, "You are accused of treason against His Majesty." Aldrich wasn't surprised. He just smiled. So at last, the true betrayal begins. During the days spent in prison, he began to write. Not on paper, but in his mind. His thoughts, his memories, his longing for justice. And finally, when the morning of his execution arrived, he looked the executioner in the eyes and said simply, "Kings change, betrayal remains the same. But the people awaken one day." Years later, that sentence became a legend among the people of the north. Aldrich de Varenne died, But his words were the beginning of a call that broke the chains. 300 years passed. A People's Republic had been established in the Varenne Valley. An ancient manuscript was found in one of the libraries, The Shadow of Iron. At the end of that text was just one sentence. A king may silence his people with treason, but when a soldier whispers the truth once, history is changed forever. The legend has lived on in tongues ever since, and every time the wind blows from the cold mountains of the north, it tells not who is right and who is treacherous, but who is silent.